Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Capital Improvement Committee Planning to order. Today, on our agenda, on February 17th, we will have the minutes from the February 10th meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Under new business, we have the fire chief with capital improvement plan.
Good evening. I believe we already previously approved my capital plan. I'm here tonight to discuss the replacement of engine 3 for FY '24, but it's going to have to go on the town meeting warrant this year so it can be voted on the following year. And the price on the capital improvement plan is $750,000. I did get 3 quotes for it, which came in all around there. One was more expensive. Obviously, that one will be thrown out. But this is to start the process. Capital has to approve it before it can go to the selectmen and the FAA to get it on the warrant. It'll probably be put on the spring warrant, be passed over, get voted on at the fall warrant, and then the following June, it'll be voted on at the ballot box.
As long as he knows.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's the system.
There'll be no surprises. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Jim.
Yes, sir.
So Dean, you said you got 3 quotes?
Yeah, and keep in mind, these quotes were just obtained within the last 3 to 6 months.
Right.
So every year you have to build in a 5% increase. That's just standard.
Right.
So one came in around 725, one came in around 765, and the other one was 816. But I've decided that I'm not gonna exceed 750, so they're gonna have to build me a truck for 750, because I'm not gonna go more than that.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair, previously, the town of Dudley had purchased a different model fire truck because of the old fire station. We have a unupdated fire station. Confirm that there's no need for any special modifications.
No, we have no restrictions. The doors are 14 feet wide by 14 feet high. This truck, the way it's spec'd, will fit well within those parameters with room to spare.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted, through the chair, I just wanted to bring up one thing that I brought up. We did just put that used truck in service. And again, that bought us time because back in '96, both engine 2 and engine 3 were bought together. So I theoretically saved the taxpayer about $600,000 by doing that. So now I only have to ask for 1 truck instead of 2. And because we got a good deal with this used truck, so. And once we get engine 3 replaced, that'll probably be the last big capital item that I replace in my tenure. I mean, we'll be replacing pickup trucks and ambulances, but anything outside of that, this will be the last one for me, probably.
Great job. Great job. That's fantastic. Any other questions? So,
Mr. Chair, just want to make sure that, I don't know how many more meetings we're going to have, that we do have the bids, so that we can look at your bids. You want to just dump out that last one, or do you want to bring that with you, or?
Well, he wanted to
Show us
meet
what
with that salesperson, that company wanted to meet with me because you gotta keep in mind, we're very early in the process, so I mean, if we can look through the whole spec, and there's probably things I can take out of there and get him to bring his price down. But again, I'll have to go back to the low bidder and tell, hey, what's the price increase, you know, by the time we're ready to purchase this, we're still a year and a half out, if everything gets approved through the whole process.
You think a 5% contingency on these is enough?
Well, that's what I was told. That's what I've been, they say build in 5% a year. But every year you go beyond it.
I don't know, just the way things are right now with prices and stuff, you know?
I know, but at some point you gotta draw a line in the sand too. I understand these trucks are expensive, and I'm not gonna, $750,000 is a lot of money. I mean, it's the going price, but, I mean, like I said, I got one price at $816,000. I think that's a little too much, to be honest with you. That's even a little too rich for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just, you know, the only thing I could say is, you know, just if you can get whatever your quotes were on those 3 quotes.
Yeah, I have it all. I didn't bring it tonight, but I can email it to the board members. I
Yeah.
got the truck specs and everything.
Yeah, that way we can kind of review it, and then we can.
But just keep in mind when you're reviewing it, that things will change. We'll make modifications to it, things like that.
No problem. That's it.
And just a real quick thing, this is the rescue pumper, so it's a multi-purpose engine. It's not just an engine, it carries our extrication tools and things like that. We may carry less water on it, but it needs more compartment space and things like that to carry the specialty items.
Super. Thank you, Chief. Anybody else have anything for the chief? Nothing? Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think we'll probably, Mr. Mayor brings up a good point about the time frame. I think we'll, before we put this before the Board of Selectmen to vote, we'll have another bite of the
capital
apple. You know, we'll get the
Well,
fine
that's what I'm
tune
kind of
plan.
hoping. I'm kind of hoping
Yeah.
we get whatever requests for
Right.
23 or going into 24 that we have our quotes, so
Yeah.
that we can kind of review it and make our.
The chief's been pretty good about
Right.
providing those in, yes.
Right.
So you're gonna vote on this next time then?
That's it, probably.
Yes.
Okay. I'll get those quotes, but actually I might hold off a little bit, because if I'm gonna meet with the salespeople, I might have modified prices too.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, like that 816 could come down, so I wanna give them, I'm trying to give the most accurate number I can give, but it's difficult when you're like a year and a half, 2 years out from actually getting the trucks. It's kind of a hard thing to gauge.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll have the Dudley Charlton Regional School District.
Mind if we come up to the table virtually?
Please.
Otherwise, we're gonna be playing with the microphone back there. We're gonna be elbowing each other. Good evening.
Evening.
I appreciate the opportunity to come back to the town of Dudley regarding capital improvements for the Dudley schools, and specifically Dudley Charlton Regional School District. This evening, we do have some documents that we're going to share with you. I believe you have the original document that was provided. We've been working with Town Administrator Ruda on developing a capital improvement plan for the Dudley Charlton Regional School District.
Yes.
And you'll notice in the documents, we've tried to establish a 3-tier system. One that we try to build within the operating budget, another that we need some support from the community, and then some long-term bonding type measures in there as well, information in there. So when we came here last time, we talked about the roof at Dudley Middle School. Now, we provided you a sheet with all of the Dudley Charlton projects, but we're really here tonight to talk about the Dudley projects and not Shepherd Hill, because we did get some feedback regarding the bleachers at this point in time, so we're revamping that plan and not including that specifically. We will always bring it forward because it is a completion piece of the project there, but we heard the feedback from the Board of Selectmen. But I want to be sure that you know, we also heard the same feedback from Charlton when we went to Charlton leaders as well. You know, it seemed to be a large cost, but it was our responsibility to bring it forward, so you at least knew what that was going to be for a project to complete the field with the bleachers there. I want to introduce Mr. Matthew, who's here, who's the Director of Finance and Operations for the Dudley Charlton Regional School District. And I want to introduce Mr. Kenny LaFerrier, who is the Chair of the School Committee member, but the Chair of the Budget and
No.
Finance.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant capital.
Did you quit on me?
No, I didn't quit. I didn't quit.
No, he's the Chair of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, and he's also a member of the Capital Outlay Committee for the Dudley Charlton Regional School District, which was started about 2 years ago. We started the Capital Outlay Committee to start looking at capital projects for us as a district, come up with a multi-year plan, because we knew that that's a requirement. We knew that that's what you would want as a community as well. So that's what we're presenting and sharing with you this evening. And I'll certainly turn it over to Mr. LaFerrier if he would like to share, or Mr. Matthew.
Did you want to go first? So thank you for having me. I know some of you and some of you I don't. So nice to meet you all. Hello, hello. First, I want to say Mrs. Terry couldn't be here tonight. She also serves on the Capital Safety Subcommittee with me as part of the school committee. But we're both on the same page as far as capital and safety needs for both towns, and specifically tonight about Dudley. Again, the way I view this is it's the school committee's role to identify needs, bring them forward, and bring them to the towns and let you guys look at them and evaluate and make decisions. So that's kind of the way I view it. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know Mr. Matthew would like to probably say a few words as well.
Yeah, again, thank you very much for having us back this evening. When we came a few weeks ago, obviously we were talking about some of the larger needs for capital, but it's very important to remember that there are smaller capital needs as well. And the plan that you have a full copy of, what I passed out tonight was simply a replication of that, just for the three main Dudley schools: Mason Road, Dudley Elementary, and Dudley Middle School. As we proceed down this path, it's not as if we haven't been here before. We're in the process of developing a capital plan when we were requested to shift gears and go for the operational override from a few years ago. And then, of course, timing being perfect, because there's never a problem with timing, COVID rolled in and delayed this even further. So it is exciting to finally have this out in front of everybody and start talking about holistically all of those things that the schools have developed a need for over the past 20+ years, since the last major round of capital and last major investment in the schools. So what we had talked about over the past year with the both towns was basically coming up with some sort of metric for where capital belonged in terms of costs. So the discussion was 25 and under seemed like something that should be absorbed inside of the operating budget for us. Those items that were between 25 and 100,000 were logical items to come forward to the town, both towns, to see if there was funding available to tackle them, year after year after year. And anything over 100,000 was deemed as something that we should search for bonding for, going out and doing that full capital. So, before we talked about phase one of the capital plan being those specific immediate needs of the roofs, the bleachers, and those sorts of things, and we've certainly heard the feedback. If we could ever get away from the requirement for having physical restrooms right at the field, as opposed to what we're currently doing, which is utilizing the restrooms that are contained within Shepherd Hill, that would reduce the cost immensely. We'd like nothing more than simply to put up some grandstands, if you will, and be done with the bleachers there, and get out of the rental process and spend as minimal amount of money as possible. But when you start talking about adding in bathrooms and outbuildings and ADA compliance for the press box and the press box itself, that's how costs start to get up there. But we certainly can recognize the concern at that level. So it's something that we're going to go back to the drawing board on. I don't know if there are any specific questions, if we want to tailor the conversation more to the phase one initially and then go into the individual school projects, or if you want to just talk holistically about the school projects.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Sir.
could just add a little bit more. A point of clarification, because I was asked this question after, I want to be clear that this is not an attempt to advocate for the bleachers to come back in, but the bleacher program is a rental, it's not a lease to own. It's not, we're not leasing it to own it at some point in time. It's a straight rental from year to year. And the other thing I want to try to clarify is building this capital plan. This is something we've done from the ground up. We worked with our building principals. We brought on a facilities director this past year. We've reviewed everything. So when we present this to you, this is us trying to boil it down to something. But we know that there's always going to be the opportunity to boil it down maybe a little bit more to make it more feasible and appropriate and acceptable by you as a community. So I just want to be clear about those 2 points as well.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, last time we met, I think I asked a question, if we could analyze rent versus build over the years and project what the cost would look like either way. Any chance that was done?
No, because what we were trying to do is we were trying to reduce the cost of the bleachers and see if we could lower that number. But again, as Mr. Matthews said, with ripping up the pavement and all that, obviously I think it's 2.4 million, with a $2.4 million build, and you're paying $30,000 a year for the rental, between 30 and 60 on the renewals of the rental, it would take you quite a few years to reach 2.4 million.
Well, I'd argue at least it gives you a worst case. Right. And it only improves from there.
So, again, if you're looking at, a 5-year contract for roughly $200,000, in at least 2019 dollars, I don't know what it looks like today, we're gonna have to explore that, but, $200,000, $2.4 million, there's a long payback period there. But again, it's the rental of the actual grandstands themselves versus, completing the field project that was started back in 2013, I think, 2014, with the, storage that's needed there, with the restrooms that are required by code, with, again, if we put a press box on, making sure that that's ADA accessible.
Is a press box required?
No, it's desired, but it's not required.
Gotcha.
And again, that's some of the value engineering that we want to go back and look at that number. Now that the snow is fairly well removed over the last couple of days, Gale Associates can come in and start to do their work in analyzing this for us and putting together some schematics.
And refining that for us, so.
Sir.
So the 2.4 estimate, that's with the press box?
Yep.
And the bathrooms and all that?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Want to?
So with this multi-year plan, we're looking for direction. We want to, we're trying to set up design it in such a way that it seems to fit with what your desire is as a capital improvement committee, with the 25 to 100 and, over 100 and, and also feedback on, what you would like us to do, timelines, what we're looking at, and any feedback on any of the things that are identified in here too. We're looking for all of that. Doesn't have to happen tonight, but we will come back to another meeting and talk about it some more, but we wanted to get our capital improvement plan out to you as a group, a multi-year plan,
Okay.
okay?
And just check out the structure and what we're looking for
Yep.
and make sure we're all on the same page.
Correct.
So it runs smoothly.
Yep.
Okay.
Outside of the priorities of like the Dudley Middle School roof and.
Right.
And I think that's the,
And the fire alarms.
The fire alarm systems. Those are buried, those are contained within the multi-year plan that you'll see. But, obviously, if they're done here, we're not going to do them again in 2 years. There's no need for that. But we do have a commitment with the fire department that we would take care of this, within a 2026, maybe?
I recall it was a 5-year plan.
Yeah, it was a 5-year. I just can't remember if it was 20 that we agreed to it or 21.
5 years.
A rolling 5 years would be great, but.
So, Mr. Chairman, are we looking to see what's gonna be carved out of it's either in the operational side of the budget or it's carved out as in a form of a debt exclusion or something, correct?
well, again, as we tried to present, if it's 25 and under, we would try to put it in the operating budget. Depends on where we land with the operating budget and what competing needs within that operating budget. There could be a major project like a new chiller on the Dudley Middle School, which happened 2 years ago, which was a $70,000 project that just kind of bubbled up in the middle of the year. And then that 25 to 100, we were going to see if we could work with you as a town to see if there was other revenue resources that could be utilized to help pay for those outside of a debt exclusion or bonding. And then anything over 100, we were looking to work with you as far as possible bonding, a couple of those items and projects together in some regard. That's kind of what we were looking for, is the structure of what we're trying to present in a multi-year plan.
So I think what might work, Mr. Chairman, for this committee is to take a look at what specifically the Dudley side of the district would be looking for in terms of direct carve-outs from another source of funding, up to and including a debt exclusion vote. Could be another source of funding like ARPA, that sort of thing, versus something that would be included in the operating side of the budget. So for this committee, I think that suits the purpose, is to see what this committee would be willing to approve for a direct, not so much a direct purchase, but a direct check provided to the school district for a capital improvement project versus it being part of the assessment.
Okay. Okay, yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
which is the proposed 25,000 level.
25 or over, correct.
Yep.
25 to 100, before you get to any bonding or debt exclusion conversation.
Right. That seems reasonable.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I know you're looking for suggestions on that ESSER 3 grant. Was it the?
Yes,
Is that what you
it
say?
is.
How you say it? ESSER 3?
Yes,
Does
yep.
any of these items like the cameras or, does that fit into that grant? Or?
The problem right now is you'll see in our presentation, is most of the ESSER 3 grant is tied up in personnel, in school adjustment counselors, extra nurse, all of that. And then we have to reserve 20% of that for improvements to instruction because of the interrupted learning that occurred. And that's what we're receiving most of our feedback on, is how do we want to spend the 20% of that ESSER 3 money to support our students.
So it's
moving
not
forward.
really for capital?
Yeah, no, we tried that originally to get into some capital, but we had some other financial needs in our ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 that we had to, ESSER 1 that we had to address, right? ESSER 2?
Well, the initial budget that we put together for ESSER 3 actually contained about 500,000 for smaller type capital,
Capital, yeah.
the things that we're looking at here. But again, as we went through, as the time marched on, the needs for student services and support in those areas became very clear and overwhelming, unfortunately, the capital.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I know we talked a little bit about the roof in the school now. Is there any other, as you see, impending doom projects that need to be getting done that's gonna come fairly quickly as far as deterioration or need of immediate repair that you see coming down the pike right now? I know the schools, we've seen one of them, I thought the high school was mentioned to something, but I'm not sure that. Just something, the real critical areas of all the schools, what that pertain to immediate repair, is something that all of a sudden is gonna hit it.
I don't think there's anything that's gonna be quite the level of priority as the Dudley Middle School roof at this point in time, but all of the roofs are, 20-plus years old at this point in time, so, they're coming down the pike. I can't think that they're going to create the same level of concern as we currently have with the Dudley Middle School roof. And because we're starting this conversation now, I think you guys will be well aware of, those other needs, through the plan, for the roof, for other roofs and those sorts of things.
Boilers or, anything.
All of those, again, when everything is at the end of its useful life, you've got a pretty large bill, coming forward. And that's the unfortunate reality that we're all facing. These projects were done, they were done well, 20 years ago, perhaps with the exception of the choice of roof. But, something that's meant to last 20 years, when you get 22, 23, 24 years out of it, it's paid its due, it's done its job, and then you just need to replace it. So boilers certainly are another one of those areas, and you'll see a good mix of those things all throughout this plan, I think. Replacing individual sections of boilers as well as, turning them over completely.
And to be clear, the Dudley Middle School roof was a compromised material. It was not the right material. It had some problems right from the get-go. And I think that the materials vendor is out of business at this point in time. So that's why that's probably more prevalent than the other schools. But as you know, with flat roofs tend to wear and tear with the weather.
And if I could comment too, I would say, Mrs. Terry and I have been talking about this a lot with this plan. The goal here is to continue the discussions and 5-year plan and just hopefully to pick away at it and not get to the point of 22 years later, oh, we need a list of items. If we can pick away at it over 5-10 years, that's, I think, the better way to go. Keep building these relationships here and with our colleagues in Charlton, and I think it will avoid some of these things bubbling up as they have.
And to be clear, we'd love nothing more than to be able to not use our E&D to support our budget and not use school choice to support our budget, but use those for these sorts of one-time expenditures that those revenues and funding sources are more geared towards. Again, just to maintain the level of excellence that the district has had, though, you know, that's been a commitment that has been longstanding and certainly has grown over the last couple of years. You know, so again, having that next level of conversation about how to, you know, perhaps not eliminate completely, but certainly reduce our reliance on those sources of revenue would be very beneficial, even in this area.
Okay. Yes, sir.
How, I know a lot of these numbers these are basically
Estimates,
estimates.
yes.
Where are the estimates coming from? You have contractors that are providing these estimates, or how are we getting these estimates?
Yeah, you know, the head custodians at each building, you know, have good relationship with vendors. You know, as they submit items, they have, you know, an estimate, but again, it's an estimate. It's not, and I'll be frank, these numbers haven't been updated post-COVID. Not that we're post-COVID yet, but, you know, to take into account the recent inflationary factors that we're all facing, you know. So you know, something that was scheduled to cost $22,000, you know, a year ago might end up costing, you know, $40,000 in today's economy, unfortunately.
So, I mean, some of these are urgent to get done real soon. How soon before you start getting actual bids on the roofs and all this? I mean, actual contract bids on it. Are you close to that, or is this gonna be something we're gonna?
Two separate, like, I think the priority list is our full focus, I think,
Right.
immediate focus. This needs to be updated, and correct me if I'm wrong.
To be clear, the phase one of the capital project that we're looking at, you know, potentially bonding, the cost for those roofs have been updated. Okay, I'm talking about the individual plan with the, you know, smaller items.
Okay.
Those are the ones that, you know, we haven't had a chance to go back and update for pricing. But what we presented with the phase one stuff was taking into account, that's why the numbers are, you know, so high, to be frank, because we are taking those, you know, what's been happening in the economy, you know, since September and October into account here. And, you know, one of the important things to remember is inside of that capital plan, you know, we have our director of facilities that, you know, can serve as owner's project manager, and that's a cost avoidance to the tune of many hundreds of thousands of dollars for those projects.
Sir.
Chairman, I'll beat Mr. Mayotte to the punch. Before we approve anything, we want to see the quotes, right? As much as we, you know, trust the fire chief 10 minutes ago, right? We want to see the quotes.
Yep, just like the fire chief, we would do the same thing. We would, as this moves along, we would come in, you know, with the backup for all of this stuff.
Good, thank you.
But to be clear, it costs money to put things out to bid because you need those technical specifications. You know, we can certainly work with an architect to get their best estimate at the time. You know, but if we want to go out, if we actually want to prepare the specifications for that, then there's gonna be, you know, upfront money that's required as well.
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
maybe a question for the operations manager. On the front page of Mason Road School, kind of an oddity, if halfway down the page it indicates oil tank 12,000 gallon double wall steel, installation of 99, so that still should have plenty of life, expected life in it. But then at the bottom, under the boiler, it indicates fuel type of natural gas. I'm not familiar with the system, but, you know, why the two? Do you have two different boilers in there, or?
No, there was no natural gas available, I guess, in 1999, but in the intermediate time, there was a line run apparently, so we can tap into that, and that obviously is a cheaper way of heating the school. So that the decision was made prior to me coming here to convert that
Currently,
over.
it's the boiler is gas, and do you have any anticipation that you would go back to a fuel oil, or is that just, so it's just a stagnant tank currently?
It's just a tank sitting in the ground at this point in time, yeah.
Okay, and it is there's a monitor tank, Vita root or whatever?
Yeah, none of the equipment, was removed. And I know, again, prior to my time there, that it was actually used for storage along the way.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions at this point?
Mr. Chairman, can I just suggest that the committee make it known to the district officials exactly what they'd like for the next meeting, so that it'll run a little bit more
Yes.
efficiently.
Okay, absolutely. So, you obviously know about the bids. Before we prove anything, we like to go with, we usually go with 3 quotes, 3 bids. And if you have something coming up real quick that you need done right away, that obviously, like you said, that's priority. We need that for the next meeting, because we're not gonna obviously move forward on anything without any backup to numbers. Anybody else want something specific from them at the next meeting? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, for the 5-year plan, probably not the immediate needs. You've got capacity of each building, but enrollment, probably be a good idea too.
Student capacity?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, we've got capacity, so what's the enrollment?
What's enrollment? Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully it's less than capacity.
Sir?
Mr. Chairman, in place of 3 estimates, as Mr. Matthews said, if you had an architect similar to a tie-in bond project where we went through and we had an estimate for something, I would be satisfied with an engineer stamp or architect for a project, especially if it's not in the next 6 months. So any of those, I think, would be a reasonable, not a problem.
Sir?
I'd probably agree through the chair, I'd probably agree that'd be good for the big ticket items.
Right.
The small stuff, you should be able to get quotes on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the roof, you're not gonna go out and put it out to bid with everything that's entailed in that unless you actually have the funding. But certainly an architect can put his pencil to the paper.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just for even a 5-year plan, can you just break down maybe, like we were saying, you got the roof now, maybe a couple other things coming down the pike, just so we're aware, maybe an estimated cost, what that might be. Doesn't have to be architect or anything, but just so we have an idea what's coming down the pike.
And Mr. Chairman, the
Yes.
way we track it internally is we have a spreadsheet for each department. 5-year plan gets updated every year, so that we have an idea as to what the status of current fiscal year's project was and what it's, going forward, what projects are coming up. So this initial meeting might just kind of serve as the baseline to make it run a little bit more smoothly in the years to come.
Yeah. It's great, that's why we're here. too.
No, and I think this meeting is our prelim meeting to just start the process, have the discussion, bring you some preliminary items, and then go back to the table and come back again. I don't think we're making final decisions. It's more of just opening the conversation.
To be clear, for the multi-year plan.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Yes.
We're, speaking for myself, and I think for everybody here at the table, we're excited with changing the way that we approach this, rather than it being completely on us to do everything. It's nice to have a partnership with the town, to say, okay, yeah, this is a logical place where you guys can make an investment and make an impact.
It's a great idea. It's good to have a helping hand.
It is appreciated.
Anybody else, anything you want to bring up on how we do it?
Well, there's, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
This sheet here,
The booklet there.
this would kind of serve as kind of a 5-year plan. Is the middle school part of this?
Yeah.
Is it in there?
It's near the end.
Okay.
That one's arranged by our budget cost centers.
Okay. Yeah, keep looking.
Good, good.
Okay. There it is.
Everybody looked at it and pretty much understands it. Okay,
I'm satisfied.
yeah. No questions, comments? Mr. Ruda, nothing from you?
All set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Outstanding. Anything else for us?
Oh, once again, we appreciate the opportunity and to work with you and to work with town leaders in Dudley, so,
Super, same here. Thank you very much.
thank you.
All of you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too now, thank you. Okay, next, we're gonna have George Petrinos from the Water Sewer Department.
At this time, I'd like to recuse myself as capital member of capital improvement to move into the water sewer phase.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Long time no see. I'm just gonna give you a quick, updated plan that I put together. And the plan is, of course, gonna change. There's been a lot of activity with the water sewer, especially with the water. I've broken this down, in a little bit of estimated funding per each individual, plan or project that we're doing to try to give you an idea. But just to make it clear, we are fully under SRF funding, and it's gonna get up in around 13 million or so, 11.5, but it's gonna get up to 13 million. The project's phases right now, I'm just putting back to year 2022 to start it off, just to let you guys know where we're going right now. I presented a plan last year. It was basically kind of coincides with this, but there has been some changes to this, that I just wanted to just bring up to your, up to date. Right now, we have completed work at station number 3, well number 7 for a new well. We were almost finished project for station number 1 for the new wells up there. We've already put in place our blending main, which blends water at station 3 to station 6. I know this is very confusing. Stop me if I'm getting too far ahead. The SRF plan also included tank work to be done, which you'll see at the, just a little bit down at Bates Hill and Dressy Hill. Those two projects have still been moved along further back because of the fact we're not able to supply water for the time being until those stations get online, because those tanks will be dry, and they have to be fed piecemeal and with certain portable modifications. There was an add-on for $600,000 as we go down for a pressure reducer valve on Mason Road at Sawmill Road. That splits our zones and allows us to open water from one zone to the other in case of fire or an emergency if we want to backfeed. That was becoming obsolete and also giving us a problem. So we decided to add another $150,000. I think it went up to $175 now with added costs, COVID and all that. And that's going to be redone this March. That's an important key because that can be done automatically, so it'll respond in an automatic fashion. We have to physically go out and turn things on and off, and that can get cumbersome and confusing, or you can't get on it altogether, and you have to play around and get onto things. So that was for $600,000 there. That was for $150,000 there. We've also encountered a risk and resilience project. This is just $25,000, but it's just to show you the DEP is requiring us to move forward with all these little projects, and some of them have a hefty price tag to them. That's not actually one of them. So 2022 is pretty well covered with some of those, but like I said, don't etch it all in stone. Certain things come into play that we have to react to, or some breaks or whatever, and they can get costly. 2023, we are going to be the phase for the new PFAS construction site at Station 6 at New Boston Road. We'll be starting that off. It's a 2-year project, basically from now, I'll say 2.5 years from now till the project can go online, and it could even go further out than that, depending on getting parts, materials, what have you. There's always been tremendous delays now with pipe. Pipe is even now 17 weeks out. I've stockpiled some in our shop for emergencies and things like that, knowing that this was happening. So it hasn't gotten any better there. This PFAS treatment center, just so you guys know, will in fact treat all our stations at that one facility. It'll pipe it right in. We're going to be running another water main, which I'll explain in a minute, to pipe Station 3's water, which is already pre-piped, ready to go, and Station 1's water ready to go. We'll be putting a water main in for that, and that's further on in it. And that's gonna allow us to have all our pump stations pump into this treatment center, be treated, and send the water back out to the public. No each station with a treatment center. That's $5 million per station. So we're gonna do this in 11.5 or 13 million or so, and get it all done in one kit and caboodle. Keep in mind that also, when I talk about new water mains going through residential streets, I'm also, and I'll put myself a little further beyond, I'm talking about a new water main from station number 1 at West Main Street, down Prospect Ave, down Ellis Street, down Warsaw Ave, down to Fairview Ave, and then through the woods into Station 6, okay? We're securing easements with 2 homeowners down there now. That is gonna remove all the need for using the asbestos water pipe on all those streets, because there's gonna be a discharge main from the station to Station 6, treated, and then a return main, treated water, back to West Main Street, to go back in that same alleyway. And that's gonna make all new tie-ins, brand new, and will eliminate all that old pipe. So you're talking millions of dollars just for one street to try to do half a mile to a mile of main. So that's gonna kill a couple birds with a stone right there. They've also, DEP has told us that we're gonna have to start spending about 600 grand because of the flooding that happened down at Schofield Ave this past season. The station is right now being corrected to try to keep out of a floodplain. But the problem is not something we created. The problem actually was due to a culvert issue down by the sewer station, where the water flows out. It backs up and backs that whole area across from Station 3. As you go down Schofield, you'll see the pond there, and that all backs up into the station. But since DEP is now aware of it, they want to have us find a way to change that whole bridge structure. So that's not right away, but we're gonna have to be working on that. So that's another expense that we were unaware of.
That's
But-
on our side,
Yes.
that backup?
What's that?
The
The
backup is on our side?
If you look at, you know where Station 6 is in the woods,
Yeah.
right? If you're standing on Schofield Ave and you're at the culvert.
Yeah.
Okay, and you first look at Station 6, that whole area backs up all the way into, covers the bridge right up and everything.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, bad. And then if you turn around the other way where the culvert is, you'll see a basin towards the sewer plant and towards Webster. That is, call it a holding basin if you want, but that was meant to kind of filter the water out through the culvert onto the French River through the sewer department.
Yeah.
Well, the culvert was destroyed, okay? It was damaged, it was backed up, and unfortunately, when that happened, the state had to be notified. I mean, I was transporting people with the backhoe into the station to get what we had to, because we were that deep. And now they're aware of it, they're gonna be making us find a plan, engineered plan, to rebuild that bridge there, which we do all the time, but now it's gonna have to be done a certain way. But it's just something that's gonna be a capital plan that's gonna be coming down the pike, just to let everybody know. Real quickly, we are still gonna be testing new sources of water. I have a couple places in mind. To put a new pump station in, roughly takes about 6 years. We require about 13 acres to do it, and you're still playing within the $15 to $20 million range, depending on how much research, how much drilling, how much, this doesn't work, on to the next, but we are looking still. So that's always gonna be an improvement in capital. It could go either way, either year, or whatever, as we can do it.
I've got 4 acres if you wanna start.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to lease it to you.
Sounds good to me.
Water and sewer out in West Dudley.
Yeah, year 20, I'm going out to year 2025 now, just to kind of break off a little bit from the stuff a lot of people know, but we are really looking to replace the water main up in the Sunnyside area, Oxford Ave. We put a new main on Pine Street, the 12-inch, and we know there's gonna be some industrial development sooner or later. I think I've got some indications from some sources. But in the meantime, if that's gonna be industrialized, it's gonna have to have a main go up through Sunnyside and then out to the supposedly area that you can do that into. So I'm in talks with a developer out there to see if we can work with them on doing that, because right now, we're out there every year, probably punching 4 or 5 holes a winter out there. just to fix. We can almost connect the pipe now. It's that bad.
Okay.
Oxford Ave is weak. I've got other plans for that, if we can go through the state to fix that road, to increase the pipe on Oxford Ave. It's just it's gonna be an ongoing thing. You're gonna see as we go through that there's gonna be some side streets off Mason Road, some connections. There's also gonna be some loop-ins we wanna do, where there's water that's not looping around and just cold stagnant, certain streets and that's always ongoing. But for the most part, the big money ticket items are gonna be, replacing water mains all through certain areas where the transite is prevalent. So, the only other things for the water department, and I bought all our equipment now that we needed. Everything is in good shape, because I knew we were gonna be getting into some big money items with all these projects. But in 2026, I'm still looking at a heavy-duty dump truck to replace the 2003. It's still running, it's been okay, but it's gonna need replacing soon. It's starting to rust out in that. There's gonna be a replacement of a pickup truck too down the line in 2028. Like I said, all our trucks right now are in very good shape, and we keep them in good shape. We'd like to keep them for at least 8 to 12 years, but sometimes with the mileage and the wear and tear, we just can't meet those needs. So sewer is pretty straightforward. There's really not much there, except there's gonna be some reconstruction of some pump stations down the line. If you wanna just go down from 2022. There's SR funding for those I&I projects right now going on. We're in the process of finishing everything up, pipelining, pipe inspection, cameraing. We found a lot of infiltration up on the Alton Drive area, in Mike's area, in the Alton Drive area. And this is where people see the manholes lifting off during the heavy rain. Hopefully it doesn't happen tomorrow morning. But I think we might have a good grasp at, now that we've got it all buttoned up as best we can, it might help to alleviate that. If not, we now have to go into a plan through the DEP, because they're gonna require it, to inspect the pipe heading down towards the sewer department. It's irregular, it's different sizes, and it backs up. And that's another possibility, that it's been backing up into West Main Street. So we're trying to hit it from both sides, but right now, the I&I is the big thing, and the one that's just about finished off. Further down, rehabilitation of Lyons Road, sewer pump station. We've already working on that to complete that. It's been a major problem. People unfortunately are throwing everything they can down the old chute, and it doesn't work that way. It just ruins the pumps. We're trying to modernize into 3-phase in some of these stations so that we don't have this problem at all. Saves a lot of overtime costs and repair costs. 2023, same thing. We're gonna be doing some Luther Lane work up at that pump station. Upgrades to pumps and generators. We've already been putting a couple generators in place. It's in our stations, which didn't have them before. And instead of towing trailers all around town in the middle of a storm, now they're there, they operate automatically. You don't have to worry about the station not working. It's all set to go. It does its own thing and shuts down when the power's back on. I&I investigation still, Nichols College area, Dudley Hill Tanya, that's been the problem, another source of infiltration up there. We're working on that too. That could be something major coming down the pike there, but we haven't identified it yet, but we've been working on it, and we're finding little bits and pieces here and there. 2024, we are looking to replace the Jetta, which is about the 1960s. I know it looks nice and pretty, it's orange, it's been doing its job, but it's getting tired. It's a gas engine, so I think it's time to put a diesel into place and start modernizing that a little bit. So I'm estimating that around $150,000 to $200,000. We're not sure what the cost will be at the time we get to that, but it is something that is needed. Conan Ave needs some rehabilitation. It has an older type of basin tank in there, which we want to fix in that. Like I said, it's going to be over $100,000, but we don't know the full prices yet. Things are going to change dramatically, like everybody's seeing. In 2025, it's going to be replacing the 2012 F-350 pickup truck with a little more heavy duty, 350 with a crane setup, same basic way for that too. The other truck's in good shape right now also. So, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, George, can you, for the next meeting, put it all on this spreadsheet?
Yeah,
Because that doesn't coincide with anything that's on your current capital improvement plan.
No, we changed, things that have changed. I didn't have a chance to get it, to put that on that.
Yeah, just, maybe ask Jen to do it. and-
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna
So we'll
do.
just
I
see
just
how-
got this off now because certain things from the DEP came into play too, and
Yeah.
it changed the whole scenario and some things.
Okay. Because when it's voted, the entire town's capital improvement plan is gonna be voted on that spreadsheet, so
Yep.
you'll wanna have it updated for the next meeting, and it'll make it a lot easier to go through
Yeah,
projects that maybe don't exist anymore, things that have been adjusted.
yeah. I wouldn't be able to see it anyway if I read it off of that, so.
But we could print that for you too.
Yeah. Gonna have to get an old.
Yes, sir. George, under the 2022 capital plan, there is a line item for replacement of the pressure reducing valve on Mason Road. You indicated that currently it's listed as about 150, and you're looking at maybe 175 because of some increasing costs.
Yep, that's,
The question being is that this was not part of the water line replacement project for Mason Road?
this was not, I was not going to replace it until they got to look at it as the project was going on, and it looked like it needed a replacement, and it was gonna be not smart to just let it go for a future time. So with the engineer's assistance and some testing, it was recommended that we do replace it. It was a change order item. We had the SRF money to do it with some extra. So we made the decision, I made the decision to go ahead and forward and do it, get it all done, get it all new. Like I said, we kept kicking cans down the road, and I just felt it was not a smart move not to.
No, I agree that it should be done, and it's nice that you can use the SRF money to capitalize on that one project. It just seems as if that should have been incorporated in that entire, replacement project.
Yeah, we were talking about it. We stopped actually using it. We were just activating it manually, like I said, just to the back feed, but they figured that it would be a smarter move if we just went ahead and did it now in case, but I'm not a believer in automatic anything when it comes to one zone feeding another. I always like members there watching and monitoring the pressures in that. So I didn't want to get too entrenched on an automatic opening all of a sudden when we're home sleeping or something and something happens. The pressures on those two zones can cause those mains to pop down the lower side of Mason, so.
Any other questions, comments, sir?
I guess it's not for you, George, but I guess it's more for Rich, and it's more of a financial question. I just want to touch on what Paul said. What's the procedure on the SRF loan? Is it kind of like an open, like that 5 point, was it the first one was 5.25?
That's what,
So are we able to interchange projects as they come up like this? In other words,
That's not a simple, the tie and bond made a submission. The state sorted out and awarded money based on the presentation and presumably need situation. So I believe, like George said, if you put a shovel in the ground, and all of a sudden you needed to change something because an unknown is now known, I don't think that's an issue. And I think there is some latitude. I'm not part of those folks, but reasonable accommodations would be made for a change order. So if it were something within that assigned money, and Ty and Bond could go through, raise their hand and say, like George said, we don't want somebody's basement flooded because we didn't upgrade the valve, or we put an automatic valve in. We have a better assessment. I don't believe there would be an issue with that.
Like I say, this is more for like a finance question, but what I'm thinking is, because you've saved money on other projects.
And I should have been more clear because I'm kind of rushing, but the tank projects, that was not an SRF originally funded thing. That was incorporated with SR funding. That was brought into a nice, neat package. Bring everything together like a big Christmas package.
Right.
And they would approve it or disapprove or whatever. But other things came into play, like the new water main over here. We didn't expect Station 1 to have issues with the PFAS. Now that's added on to the SRF funding. So as the SRF goes, they take it and they examine it, they'll approve it or they won't approve it. And we've been very lucky that they've approved most anything we've requested or added on to our projects, because it's quite substantial.
So if you add on, you have to get approval from them? Is that how it works? In other words, if he saves,
I think it's a
if
matter
he
of.
saves $500,000 on this project, it was overestimated by $500,000, and he saves $500,000, can we use that $500,000 from the SRF?
No.
To do this?
No,
I think it's a matter of like.
it's the package.
Yes. If you come across a valve, the ground's open, okay, but if you get extra money and decide, hey, for the hell of it, we're gonna put a main down this road that doesn't have a main yet, that's a complete change in.
So it's gotta be-
I would think that was,
So
that would
you've
be.
got to.
It has to relate to what the project at hand was.
Was originally when you
Yeah.
applied for the SRF.
I can't go from one side of town and say, okay, well, that's, you
I'm
know.
just wondering, you know,
Yeah,
if one
no.
project's, you know, you save a ton of money on one project, we can, you know, is it like an open line of credit?
They have only a
Right,
certain amount of money to
something
give us and what they've got, and they wanna make sure that it coincides with what we're attempting to do for the whole thing, so.
else. It's gotta fit in.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and the unique situation was our first submission, where it was almost a bundle. If you went through and said, we need $750,000 to repair Bates Tank, they'd go, you're at the bottom of the list, as opposed to Ty and Bond sort of packaged some rehabilitation together so that the town of Dudley could demonstrate some need. So as far as the 5.225, I believe there's a little bit of latitude between some of the projects from one to another, but, you know, we're right, you can't go through and do Schofield Ave work on a Mason Road authorization.
So it's gonna be attached to that project,
Right.
okay.
So Nichols, up by Nichols, that's not part of those projects, so we really couldn't use any leeway in that SRF.
But
Not for that particular thing that we have to, right now, with the PFAS, that is the big money holder right there, that's the big game, the game winner right there.
It's gonna be-
You've got all these are attributing to PFAS mitigation, everything that we've talked about, and also, even the tanks in a way, qualified.
Yeah, that's
it.
fantastic. Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so next we'll, on the old business, Mr. Kamiani with the accounting software, sir.
we have an update. There is a second proposal dated 2/16. Went the other direction. You know, normally you want somebody to sharpen their pencil, and it seems, I think in this case, we've increased the Vadar cloud to 20 users. There's something for remote department, AP and reporting, and a proof's out at the 173, 760, 70. Also, there's some state contract fees that look like they were added in. So I'm sure if we ask very nicely, we can get another bill up around 196, and by the. I can report, Mr. Chairman, that yesterday BMSI had given something, so where BMSI is. BMSI provides a version of accounting software to the accountant. There is no link to anything else. Keeps a general ledger, runs the reports, produces some checks, a lot of manual input from the other departments. There is a different tier product that's being offered. Has a bit more, but it's not complete like Vadar. It has a utility function in it. It can accept, if we ever wanted to do this, a point software integration with it, clunk, and another bridge from the assessor through the general ledger account to a collector account, rudimentary treasurer's account, so it was almost a work in progress. It was important to sit through because there were a few items that I think were of note, little things like that. There was definitely a willingness to go through and make sure that whatever product was being sold, there were enough variables to put in. And make sure that Dudley had a product that was to their liking in the line that was being offered. The biggest con, other than the incomplete platform or suite, they only had Turner's Falls as one of the water sewer utilities.
Yeah.
They're not putting a casino there. It's really not a mecca. A lot of what they did was out of state. New Hampshire, the example was Maine, items like that.
Okay.
One of the things that was very obvious, Hvac system has 100 municipalities. And it's not that they're the best, but we wouldn't start with a blank sheet of paper. We'd have our discussion and you'd be able to load in, I use Abington because they used it. If you wanted to go apples to apples, Orange was mentioned. The idea that there was a town administrator somewhere, there was an FAA chair somewhere, and they had already created a few reports. So as opposed to sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to run a budget analysis, your friends over at Hvac probably could point you in the direction of 1 or 2 to get you started, so that one budget cycle through, you'd be up to speed. So it was good like that.
Mr. Chairman, it's similar, like Rich was saying, to like an online permitting system. It previously was created and it's used pretty universally for like municipalities. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's existing currently, and plug in our data as opposed to Abington's data. And you're halfway there. I don't know if we want to consider another software platform such as BMSI that, doesn't fully suit our needs. What's the point?
Right, I
If it
agree.
doesn't integrate with all the departments the way we want it to, if it doesn't necessarily suit our needs the way we want it to, maybe it's a penny wise and a pound foolish at this point.
So basically, Vadar is the way to go. We
Yeah,
just
and
don't know which.
And we rang the bell a second time, really. It pains me to reach out on multiple occasions to have someone from the sales office to call you. I get a sales call twice a week, and it's, some are from known vendors and others are cold calls, 101 emails as well. And I'm reaching out to somebody and it's not a general info, and just haven't gotten a response.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
To Mr. Carmignani, is Hvac the only sole provider that meets all of our needs? Instead of patchwork systems?
Munis is the other one.
And Mr. Chairman, we did take a look at other software platforms. When it was just mentioned, we spoke to other cities and towns and ruled out that platform for Dudley.
Didn't need
Based on
one.
the feedback.
Okay, so poor reviews.
Just based on the feedback,
Okay.
it wasn't something that would work with Dudley.
So here we have a premium and a standard.
Oh, I hate to be the person to say this, but the premium is the one you're looking for, that offered everything. If we're gonna do this, we're going to do this, and you get to go through, type in some information and say, okay, here we are year-to-date as of middle of February. Are we in good shape, are we in terrible shape, or indeterminate at the time? you can't figure out your excise revenues right now because the bills only hit last week.
Right.
So little things like that.
So that's close to real time then?
It would be a little better depending, obviously you have a process in place now, but you would revisit everything you did. My office is just a flutter with paper, and there, as opposed to, there would be a more formalized process. You'd be able to go through and clear things out a little bit faster, as opposed to.
Rich, the main difference in the two prices appears to be the historical conversion. What exactly is that, and is that really needed? Do we need to, is that a feature you can't not have?
I think a great deal of the historical data is going to be when you have, the conversation came up with utilities and previous usage and what have you. George wants to know, Brian wants to know, okay, number 1 Alton Drive, what was the usage for the last 2 years, 3 years, something like that?
How do you, this looks like if you're gonna have that, which is great, like if you're gonna go forward, I'm assuming without that, you're still gonna have, going forward, historical data. So if you have this in place for 5 years, you can go back a minimum 5 years.
Right.
So who's gonna do the conversion into the historical? I mean, you're gonna take, how far back you're gonna go in rates to, who's gonna do that? That's gonna be pretty costly to take all that information and start entering it.
Probably not.
How do you convert your system of all these old bills and stuff into the?
It would be a report exported to a file to go through and say, here it is. What's the limit on excise bills? Excise bills is, the mark stands in perpetuity. We're collecting things back 99, 97.
I would disagree, but my thinking is a little different, where I would believe that historical data has value to it.
Right.
Well, I'm not disagreeing on value. What I'm saying is we had asked Jen to print out the water and sewer bills for our other committee, and it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do, and just on water usage, just for 1 quarter. So that was a difficult thing. It wasn't just push a button and copy and paste or whatever. She actually had to go through a process just to get that. So I'm just wondering how efficient is it going to be to take all this old data and start inputting it. I mean, who's going to do that? It doesn't seem like it's going to be an easy process other than move a PDF file over.
I think the migration is simple.
Okay.
I think whether it's 1 year or 20 years, because the first year in the system is 99, there's a database. They're going to go through and say, okay, here it is. You have 7 categories of taxes being collected, and you run your range from. And
If you feel like, say, I'm no, the expert.
Why wouldn't they do and it's one computer person going through, pulling all the data, and some of it is going to be irrelevant, but I guess my take on it is you're doing them all because you want to give and take and go through and say, oh, 5 years is 5 years, and all of a sudden there's an issue on something, the 6th year there's an old tax title.
I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand the value behind it. My question is how you can actually use it. So are we going to spend an extra 20 grand and you're going to actually have somebody convert old data into this? Because that seems like it's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to need another clerk to do that. Who's going to do that?
Is that on our side or their side?
Their side.
That's on our side.
They do that for us. They take our data and
They do it for
convert
20 grand. Yeah, that quote was
Hey,
based. That quote was based on what.
Then
they-
you sold me. If they're gonna do it, then
Yeah,
you sold me.
that's
But
what
I'm
you're
just
getting
wondering
at.
if we're gonna hire another clerk to come in here and start,
Oh, no.
you know, typing,
Let
you
me
know.
assure you through the chair that there is no chance that we're doing that on that side, none. I think that they know the systems and software and how we store our data, and they priced it accordingly to migrate it.
It's good for me.
I would almost smile and say, guys making 20 grand for him in the course of not even a week.
It's fine.
2 days. You wanna pay me 20
We're on
grand?
TV. You say
I'll
we
get-
don't need
I'll
to
get
hire
it
a
done by
clerk. That's all I
Tuesday
need to
morning.
know. Okay.
Figure it out. Give me a phone call.
Thank
I'll
you.
work all night.
All right.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
We were gonna do it, yeah, no.
Chair, do we need a motion here, or?
I mean, yeah, because he's gonna have to get on this pretty quick, was my
Right, 'cause I know
understanding
we're
from the
on
last
the
meeting.
I mean,
We're out of luck in August, was it, or?
June,
Middle of June.
June. So, yes, I would recommend a vote on
so,
that today.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
As long as Mr. Camignani verbally recuses himself at this point.
I'm not a voting member, I
You
appreciate
are?
it. Capital improvement, no.
Oh, that's right, we
No.
took you off. All right, never mind those
I'm-
words.
I'm here 'cause I'm
Never mind,
handsome.
my bad. Forgot we took you out of that.
Or invited.
I would move to adopt the Vadar proposal, with proposal number 2, which includes the historical conversion, for,
That's a premium offering.
for $173,760. Right, $173,000.
Second?
Although, let me finish my motion. I don't know if it'd be wise at this point because cost increases. I don't think a cost increase would affect you on this. I'm assuming this is pretty close to a proper estimate here.
Just seeing. Valid through June 30th, 2022.
Okay.
I would move to adopt proposal number 2 for the Vadar software system up to $175,000.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, do we have discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
So, Mr. Chairman, we have a unique situation here where we have authorization to purchase just under $174,000 worth of software. Previously, Treasurer Collector's Office spent X, Water and Sewer spent Y, the assessors spent, everybody spent a smaller amount. Maybe for the next meeting, we would be able to go through and bring in everyone's cost that currently sits in the 22 budget. We'd bring it forward into the 23 budget, or 23 proposed budget. So as much as this is an authorization with approval from this committee, hopefully from the Board of Selectmen, FAA, but the change in the budget would be minimal. It's going to be +1, -1, or very close, because I see the treasurer collector side. I'm gonna be a little bit more in my office. It's gonna be more in the other office, and it's gonna be a little different for everyone. So we'll go through and we'll make the costing. Annual costing is, we're gonna be maybe a few thousand short, but we're getting a fit. So the amount of money it's actually going to cost, additional money it's gonna cost is going to be marginal.
Okay. Okay. Anybody, any other comments, questions, concerns?
George liked the software.
Oh, good.
That's all that matters.
That's it. That's it. Okay, if we have nothing there, we'll move forward to Mr. Ruda.
Mr. Chairman, I have two things to accomplish hopefully tonight. The first one is to add to my capital improvement plan for FY '23 for the playground, which is on the agenda. And I can quickly, if the committee wants me to, run through the changes for the 5-year plan. Some things have been completed and so forth, and provide an updated document at the next meeting.
That'd be great.
I can go quickly on the updates. I think there's a spreadsheet in everybody's folder.
Yes.
Okay, so to update on the new fuel system, which is the first one on the sheet, the decision was made to remove the fuel system altogether. So, and to replace it with Hvac cards, which allows us to buy it at a commercial gas station as opposed to carrying the liability that is inherent in having your own fuel dispensing system, the inspection, potential environmental impact. So the Board of Selectmen worked with us and we approved that change. So that'll be removed from the system. The only remaining cost associated with that item is the cost to remove the tanks and mitigate the property, which will be about $9,500 according to the latest quote we got. Doesn't require capital improvement, but I just want to update you that that project went from $250 to $9,500
Wow.
by making that change.
Okay, that's great.
The next one is 2023 radio wiring upgrade. We'd like to have that remain as a FY '23 request. And I'm gonna work with the fire chief to apply for a IT grant through the community compact and maybe pay for that upgrade, so that would be the source of funding for that.
That's for the whole town?
That's just to serve public safety needs.
Okay,
The issue is that the repeaters are all connected with copper wiring, and Verizon essentially doesn't support copper wiring anymore, so
Right.
it causes a problem with our ability to communicate.
okay.
Didn't we
Sir?
have, did we have money sitting in an account? to do all the stuff in here, did we have any money for that left? Like all the upgrades for the,
For public safety radio? Because there was a separate public safety.
Cable company.
yeah, there's a cable, wasn't the cable company, we had money sitting in the cable company account or something, they put money in and then we used it for, it was
We-
designated for
We
like,
still get that from, we still get that money every year as a, what's the?
Franchise
The
fees.
franchise fee. So we've got a few $100,000, well, just under a few $100,000
Left in it?
always sitting there. We used it recently to upgrade the console that Fred's sitting at now, the TVs and so forth. And it's very specific that it has to be used in a manner that supports
this wouldn't
cable
support it?
X, no,
No.
it wouldn't. But,
Oh, well, tried.
Good one.
we received an IT grant this past year, so we're not eligible to apply this year, but I'll apply with the chief next year if we get something going with that.
Okay.
HVAC system upgrade is scheduled, I'd like to have that on for 2024. This is ongoing multi-step program. To date, a combination of general funds and grant funds has been used, and another round of grant funding will be requested for FY '23. And that's that Green Communities grant that we've used for this building, like to insulate, take a look at the envelope of the building and so forth, and correct any deficiencies. They get paid for LED lighting and that sort of thing. But we've also unfortunately had a number of repairs that have had to have been made as the system slowly has a cascading failure throughout the building. We've had to repair those, no heat, no air sort of thing. And we've used some CARE Act funding for that, and we've used some general fund money for that. So we are kind of halfway through a thing reactively rather than proactively until I can identify a source of funding to finish the entire project. I'm gonna take another attempt at a Green Communities grant for the upcoming 2024 fiscal year, but right now we're making progress, but in a more reactive than proactive manner. No changes for land purchase. On the next version of this, security for all town buildings, the CARE Act helped us out tremendously with that. Also an IT grant for our network room has helped us pay for that. That is completed, so that'll be removed. New phone system was completed last fiscal year, CARE Act money, that'll be removed.
Yes, sir.
Where will you relocate the camera on the gas pumps?
It serves the greater highway department, so that's one of maybe 3 cameras that are on the highway property, which would probably just leave it exactly where it is, just for security reasons. Replace windows, we'll leave that alone for 29. Major maintenance on the HVA system. I think when we initially did this capital improvement plan, we placed that on without knowing the full extent of what needs to be done, so I'll combine that with the HVAC system upgrades for the municipal complex that are listed above that we spoke of, that we're kind of reacting to, and try to get a grant to address that. That's 2 projects in one. So I'll remove that for the next version of the plan. We'll leave the resealing of the parking lot alone for 26 for now. Carpeting is very much become a lower priority in the next 5 years, so we'll move that out to 28. Ceiling tiles. We actually found a cache of ceiling tiles in the storage room downstairs, so that had been purchased, and I guess they must have been marinating down there, but we're gonna start replacing those. I know Brian's gonna probably start working on them this week. You can see the ones above our head are ready to fall on top of us. Yep, that one. So that's Brian's upcoming project for the next coming week or 2, and we'll use what we have in stock first and then reevaluate where we stand with everything. We'll leave replacement of furniture alone for now. Generator is an example of another, as the committee knows, we had to react to that. We used FAA reserve money to the tune of $15,000 to complete the maintenance and change the switch on the generator. I think we're on track for probably beyond 2029 to look at replacing that, but we'll leave that for now. They gave it a pretty clean bill of health once they got it opened apart and maintained and fixed some of the more critical areas of it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
for the generator,
Yes.
the generator, the engine itself should run until we're all dead and buried.
Right.
It was all of the other items, and you know, every Tuesday at noontime, it fires up for half an hour and runs, which keeps most of it going, but they were wear items that were, okay.
They had it apart and took a pretty good look at what actually needed to be replaced versus, you know, a lot of that maintenance had been deferred, but because of a failure, it caught up to us, and we fixed it whether we liked it or not, yeah.
Switch we just fixed.
It was a switch, yeah.
Yep.
And that's, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It needed to be professionally done, it
Right.
wasn't anything.
Nothing in-house or anything.
There's a difference between fixing an outlet here and
Yeah.
Right.
you don't fool around with that one.
Okay.
The UPS system, we'll leave that as a 27, we'll take another look at that through the IT department. I feel like we should have more life in that system than what it's saying we do here, but we'll take another look at that. Well, we can leave that on for now. The digital signboard is supposedly replaced every 5 to 10 years. It's in good shape to me, so I think 29's good. automatic door, potential 24 or 25 grand. So we did our ADA assessment in town, and we can probably seek funds once we've completed an open space, an updated open space plan, which we're going to use CMRPC hours for. And then I'll seek a grant to put an automatically opening door on the second floor entrance. It's not critical at this point. It's being used by employees only. If we needed to have a different means of access, that would be from the little parking lot that's already equipped with that, with the automatic entry. You press the button and you have automatic entry, so it would just be a separate entrance that people could use and continue to use. Brings them right to the elevator.
Okay.
It's handicapped accessible.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Any chance that we can, get up to the Industrial Revolution age and have a badge access?
Well, you're gonna be excited about what's coming up, Mr. Johnson.
Which decade is it coming?
This is coming up in March, badge access.
March.
It's, yeah.
I didn't hear that.
You install a chip in your hand, so you can just.
Yeah.
There's already a
I got
chip
my shots.
in your hand. They've already,
You got your shots on.
I got my
Oh,
shots.
there you
My
go.
5G works better.
The next items are all maintenance on dams, and I don't think we change any of those. I mean, it's an ongoing yearly process. We put in $20,000. It's constantly just staying ahead of what we're required to do for compliance and seeking out grants to pay for the design and construction and removal of some of the grants, or the drawdown on some of these grants, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
that's just for paperwork, right?
That's just,
The big ticket items you have to,
I've got it,
Those
right,
grants.
that's ongoing inspection and maintenance and seeking dam and seawall grants to try to pay for the removal of these dams. We've got 10 or 11 of them in town that we have to address.
Okay.
Streetlight arms, we've done a lot of replacement with streetlight arms. We could almost remove that at this point from the capital improvement plan. So I'm gonna schedule that to be removed. I won't remove it, I'll push it up to 2030. Hazard mitigation, this is an MVP grant, a FEMA grant priority, and we'll shift the focus of this grant. We had it as a general expense, hazard mitigation in general. We're kind of fine-tuned that, and now we're gonna our priority is to shift to address stormwater and dams and become eligible through a municipal vulnerability grant. Well, I just made, Paul and I are gonna be on a call next week to put ourselves in a position where we can apply for grant funding in the summer and beginning of FY '23. So I think 2024 remains a good date to shoot for through grant funding. More maintenance on dams. Archiving of electronic records. Now, this was when I first started, and it was, pre-everything, pre-COVID. I thought this would be a good idea because we have so many records that need to be electronically stored. I think it still is a good idea, but it's on the carpet replacement priority list at this point. With the FY '25, and hopefully at that point I can find some source of funding to start digitally archiving our records. And now finally, the one I'd like to add for FY '23. The playground is currently closed due to safety issues and broken and unsafe equipment. My hope is to sponsor an article for 2022 for borrowing and ask the Board of Selectmen to ask for a debt exclusion, which would happen probably in the fall. I've included a quote, which was a rough estimate, more than a quote. I included at our last meeting, and I know Jeff and Michelle and Brian have been working with the company that originally did the work, and it's not what started out as I thought I'd be in a situation where we were just replacing the slide that was broken, and we could move on. Well, that opened a big can of worms, and it was 30 grand for the slide, so, you know, and it wasn't just that one company. The slide was 30 grand universally everywhere, not a cheap item. And then you have somebody come take a look at it and they say, well, where did this come from? You can't even put these in anymore. This is unsafe, this is unsafe, you can't, you know, these things are too close together. So now it has become now that it's in my head that it's unsafe, and it's not compliant and wouldn't pass inspection, I think we need to just bite the bullet and ask the voters in town if they want us to replace the entire thing or not, because we can't reasonably reopen that without, now that we know that the liability that exists with it and the risk that exists with it. I don't wanna reopen that until the safety issues have been addressed, and it comes with a very steep price tag. Soup to nuts is between $380,000 and $400,000. That's for a brand new playground. And you look at ways to try to cut that expense down. And even if you find ways to cut it down, they come up with things like the equipment's too close to each other. So if somebody comes down the slide and they're smashing into another kid that's playing on another unsafe, you know, implement in the playground area and so forth. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. It's time to take a look at just replacing it. As I said at the last meeting, it sees a lot of use. I was bowled over when I saw the amount of use that thing had when I first took the job. Kids are always out there, parents are always out there, grandparents are always out there. So it sees a lot of service, and I think it's a good opportunity for the town to vote and decide for themselves whether they want it, what do they want us to do, which should be the next steps. I've looked for grant funding for it. There isn't for a pre-existing. There's grant funding for a new site that would be proposed, you know, to buy the land and develop an open space. But things that are pre-existing, we don't necessarily qualify for it. In addition to that, I'm looking at creating a green space park where that fenced-in area is where the old skateboard park used to be.
Where there's a truck now.
Where there's a truck now, which is
play on that.
which is for sale, right? And eliminating that corral of junk up there that we have, that really is. So I can get grant funding for that. Michelle's been working on, you know, we're gonna work on, I mentioned earlier, updating our open space plan, and that creates a situation where we're eligible for park-type grants, open space, green space. So we'll find the source of funding for that. But even that, making that park from scratch is like half the cost of what it is to replace the equipment in that playground. So that's something that we really need to think about.
Sir?
Mr. Chairman, Jonathan, so if we found a location somewhere else, I mean, not 100 yards away, but the other side of at the beach, the bathhouse, you know, we'd go through and cut down 25 trees and put up a little park there, we'd be able to do something, or, you know, fill in the blank, another municipal spot, we'd be able to put something in, presumably.
Well, see, that's the hinge pin, because we already own it. They like the idea that we find more open space and protect it by putting in a recreation area, so we'd have to buy something or get it donated in order to get.
So along those lines, and it was part of a previous conversation, the two parcels on that side of the building were for sale recently, well, I say recently, within the last 5 years. And there's a giant parcel to the other side, and I'm sure there's a piece to the other side. So if in part of the capital plan, we'd be able to go through and put a placeholder that says, just for argument's sake, the other side, there's 3 or 4 acres there. When that opportunity came up, that somebody decided to move to Florida or just sell it and make a profit, we'd be able to go through and purchase an adjoining piece of property with such a grant.
I think we should think about doing that regardless as to whether or not if it's for a playground replacement or expanding the senior center or something like that. I think that we should always think about that.
Right, and on more than one occasion, there's been the conversation of, should you have bought that property, that property, that property? Obviously, the front faces the road, but the idea was, what could you do? Is it an alternate egress as far as parking goes, so that you'd redirect things? Is it additional parking? Is it an additional building? I think this all started with, when we vote in the town of Dudley, it's downstairs. Some elections, it's not very crowded. Others, goodness gracious, it's elbow to elbow. So that's a future conversation to have. You know, if anything, just a steel building, I don't know, 70 by 121 level, so that you could do whatever you needed to. You could vote, you could rent it out. It's your senior center, whatever you wanted it to be, and have a playground, you know, next to it or what have you. But you don't know when things are going to be.
Well, that's just it, Mr. Chairman. I think if, you don't know what the circumstance is gonna be if something becomes available, you know, and what grant funding will be available. If that, you know, 8 years from now, are we still gonna be available to,
Right.
we're gonna be in the same position asking people to vote to replace the playground again, so. It doesn't hurt to put it on the ballot. We have a pretty decent price and an idea as to what it's gonna cost, and let the community decide if they wanna replace it or they wanna wait. I think Rich's idea is great, that we should always be looking to plan for the future, and we certainly are gonna outgrow this building pretty soon. We're certainly gonna be looking to, you know, renovate the police station, which is, you know, we're 25, 30 years into this. Into a lot of this, and we're gonna eventually have to expand. It may be when I throw the next guy the keys, but at some point, we're gonna have to think 10, 15, 20 years from now, what we're gonna be looking at, so. I'm not sure that the playground ties into that, but that's what I'm proposing to the Capital Improvement Committee.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions on this 10-year plan, sir?
Oh, playground or 10-year plan?
It's in it, so anything in it. Yes.
So would we need a separate motion to move the playground to town meeting, or would that just be?
I think, Mr. Chairman, we're looking to accept the addition of the playground onto my the municipal complex capital improvement plan as presented with the amount given in the quote. And we can do one of two things. You can accept my verbal adjustment of the spreadsheet and the notes I attached in your packets, or if you want me to clean it up, I can bring it to the next one and you can vote on it, on the adjustment then.
What would the committee like to do?
Who's on the bid here that you called?
This one. What's the playground? Kimball.
What's the name?
That's
They,
Kimball for the playground?
O'Brien and Sons, they're out of Medway, and they do a lot of
Yeah.
landscape structures, they're called.
They
And that's
did
what we
the-
have out there now, landscape structures.
We bought a few pieces when the building was installed, and then we kind of hodgepodge together the rest of it.
So he's estimating 350 to 380 to do this all over completely. And you're asking for repairs.
I'm actually, well, I don't think,
You're
no,
asking for,
no, I'm not, I started off asking for and looking to replace a slide and just do repairs, but it opens a can of worms that we
Right.
just can't seem to get out from under in
So-
terms of, the matting needs to be replaced, the placement of the equipment needs to be replaced. Some equipment is outdated and unsafe, it wouldn't pass inspection to begin with, so we're back at square one. We're looking for money to do a from-scratch playground on that footprint that currently exists.
so the 185, we're not and then ask for the 185.
No, that's right out of the
That's what
question.
we're taking care of.
That's when I thought, that's when I thought I could replace the mat and repair
Right, so
a
you're basically
swing, you
asking
know?
for what he wants between 350 and 380.
Right, well, that's, yeah, and
That's your bid.
the other guy we had last week came in, at a similar amount, 380, I think.
Well, I'm not, definitely, we should fix it the right way.
We have to, I mean,
Yeah, so I'll definitely would support, do you wanna take a motion now?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
one question for Mr. Ruder.
Yeah.
So this does not eliminate the thinking of moving to a new location.
moving the playground.
Correct.
Based on what I know for grant funding now, if the town owned the land, we would be disqualified. It's money to buy land for that specific purpose.
Yep, I
Right.
understand, but I guess, what am I trying to say here? So if we do this, then the thinking of moving to a new location, capturing grant monies would be off the table?
Moving the playground itself to a new location, not necessarily, because the grant money is available for parks, fields,
Okay.
that sort of thing. But the idea of a playground, you know, maybe that would be off the table if we spent the money now to replace it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't wanna advocate too much for something, but I like the idea that we've got a police station right there and a bunch of kids playing.
Sure.
You know, I think that's a great safety issue. That we could never replicate that if we moved it, say, to the beach, because we've got cameras on the beach just to see what's going on down there, that, you know.
But there's no police station.
But there's
at the
no
beach.
police station right
No
there, so the
boundary.
idea of the kids kind of in the woods back there on a play, you know.
Yeah,
I think this is a great location, to be honest with you. You've got the restrooms right here, and
Okay.
So, I guess, are you looking for a motion for approval on this bid here, or now? or-
yeah,
To
and
put it on
I'll
here.
add it to my capital improvement plan if it's approved.
Okay. If we get a motion on that.
So what are you looking for the high end of this, the 380, or? Is that what you,
It will, it's a price tag that size, it would go out to bid, and the procurement wise,
Right, you're looking-
we'd get the most cost-effective price, but.
right,
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying
would go
up
with the
to
high.
380, is
I
that?
would go with the high end of it, yeah, definitely.
That's what is, basically what he's saying here, so. I would move that we accept this bid up to $380,000 for the replacement of the park, call it, I guess, right?
Mhm. Playground.
Children's playground.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Do we have discussion?
Do we have to add anything about, the vote on town meeting, or no?
No, because this is a recommendation
Okay.
for the selectmen to vote to accept the plan, and then
That's
we
up to
would,
you.
you know.
Is that gonna be a separate plan?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
The only thing I wanna mention, and this is kinda more on the financing end of it, it seems to me that this is something that maybe, it's a playground, it might be an opportunity, cause we don't do a lot in town here with like philanthropic
Right.
type of activities. I mean, we've asked the college at points, you know, and they've been, we got a new president up there, Sal Macy's a new president. I think there's a lot of opportunity for the town. Instead of just saying, let's build this, throw it on a debt exclusion, is there, you know, have you thought about that? Or thought about putting some people together to think about where we can get some grants, we can get some organizations to kinda see if there's a, you know.
It's hard because town officials are not supposed to solicit volunteer.
Well, that's what I'm saying, maybe a committee or something. I don't wanna form another ad hoc committee, but I'm just a group of people that can write letters to the college, write letters to some of the philanthropic.
Yeah.
That seems like a project and something that a lot of people would take on. You're gonna put a fence up around it, is an opportunity to put little signs from your business all over the thing, you know what I mean? That's how a lot of parks are made.
Rich?
Is there a possibility, I mean, this is going down for financing or whatever, but are you open to that kind of discussion down the road?
I'm open to it, sure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, very similarly, when the library was put together, there was library money from the state, there was a benefactor, and then there was an organized Friends of the Library effort that went through and effectuated whatever it was, $1 million coming in.
You know, I can just, you know, I'm picturing in my head, you know, you're driving by the town complex over here, you see, you know, the Shepherd Hill kids, the art class makes a big slide, you know what I mean? And we get the little number that goes up the slide, or the kid that goes down the slide saying, hey, you know, we got to our goal. You know, you get some of the groups like the Boys and Girls Club and
Right.
the college, and, you know, different groups that get involved that can, you know, solicit money, raise money. There's lots of GoFundMe stuff that you can do. Just thinking that kind of a project as opposed to, you know, buying a fire truck or buying a pickup truck. That's the kind of thing that
Right.
if we have some people to volunteer, we can kind of put together a plan to raise money versus having to, you know, throw it on a debt exclusion with everything else.
So even for now, Mr. Chairman, we could still put it on a warrant
Right.
to borrow the money, because even if we raise the money, I think Rich would probably still borrow it, and we'd pay for it through the gift account, something like that. And, you know, I don't think that putting it on the warrant is gonna do any harm to that idea at all. If it's approved by the town, source of funding to be determined.
And it gives them an opportunity to speak as well.
Right.
I
Keep
think when
them-
people learn about it, there'll
keep them
be some-
involved.
There'll definitely be some interest in groups helping out.
And they'll come up with good ideas too.
Yeah. I'm sure there's probably not that we're thinking about right now, but I'm sure there's probably a lot of different kinds of grants that we may not be thinking about that might be out
All I
there.
think about is grants.
I know.
Every single kind
It's-
of.
The whole world is grants now.
I get grants for grants.
But-
If your name's Grant, you're gonna get a grant.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
So, Mr. Chairman, just, I'll update my capital improvement, plan and just include it in the big plan. It will be recommended to the Board of Selectmen for adoption.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, with that being done, if no one has anything else, motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Great job. Thank you.